that.
Yeah.
No, it was the demonstration of like, oh, and if you have to, this is called a jump cut. And if you have to cover the jump cut, you use an insert, a cutaway. And it just
Bill, you're kicking off the show. I don't know if you got the note.
Oh, I am?
Yes, you are.
No, I didn't see that. Okay, thank you. I have to pull a few things up on screen.
That's what I figured. You need a little prep there.
Thank you. Yeah, that helps.
And Chris, you're just a little loud. At least that's what Keeley says.
That would have been interesting if I didn't know. I would have sat here.
We'd all be staring at the clock.
Me too. It's at 0. Why isn't somebody talking? What's today's topic?
CEO, OWC.
Oh, that's right.
Other world computing.
Connor. It's Larry Connor or Larry O'Connor?
O'Connor.
O'Connor, thank you.
Otherwise referred to as Mac Sales.
Yeah, I own quite a bit of their stuff too, and one of my dear friends has gone to work for them, so fine company. I've patronized them for a long time.
Their glowing blue logos are all over my room here. And there's always a chance that Alex won't be able to come in at all.
Okay. So be prepared to go the distance.
I would, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Got the reading position nailed down here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let's get this up here. And okay, I can launch successfully now, I think. And we got 2 minutes to spare. No problem.
Oh, no. Sync just went way out on you, Bill.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Now it's back.
Yeah, by the end of the show yesterday, it was like 2 seconds out.
I know.
2 to 3 seconds out, I think.
Everybody was telling me it was horrible. And I cleaned up so much. I popped open Mac.
I think it's your Apollo solo.
No, it's not the Apollo solo because
Something
remember
with
that
the
Apollo,
chain.
Have you tried
6 months before?
Have you tried to take it out of the chain?
6 months before I bought the Apollo solo, this was happening to me. This delay has been a part of me for the last year. I cleaned my Mac and just took everything out.
Chris is doing his best Alfred E. Newman face.
So Mickey is trying to convince me to try to find somebody who will pop for $100 bet on the fact that it's not any of those things, that it's just I need to clean my Mac more deeply. Oh, Mickey is betting me. Oh, Mickey wants to put money on it. So he's pretty sure. Mickey is way too smart for me to bet against when it comes to computer stuff.
I was just going to say, I'm not betting against Mickey ever.
No, that's.
Yeah, you're
Mama
right.
didn't raise no fool.
Trying to swap up to an M2.
I turned my M2 on last night.
Did it boot incredibly fast and wow you?
It did. Now I'm trying to make everything work.
You got your kernel numbers in there?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. Great to have you with us today. If you're watching on YouTube, you remember you can always find out more about what we do on officehours.global. Our first hour, consistently a general discussion of production and IT-related topics as we answer audience-submitted questions. If you want to get questions in, there's a system for doing that, so check the website and it'll lead you right to being able to do that. The second hour, typically a deeper dive into a topic, and today we're very excited. Larry O'Connor of OWC, the fabulous provider of hard drives and memory and all sorts of things that many of us use here, is going to be our special guest in the second hour, and we're really excited about that. So, Mitch, that's the billboard for what's happening on the show. Let's dive right into our questions. What have we got today?
All right, Bill, kicking it off is Andy Kokendorfer from Vieira, Florida, asking thoughts about the new Blackmagic design TV studio switcher IP signal acquisition. What codecs are they using?
I don't know what codecs. We all had a watch party yesterday and watched the Blackmagic design announcement. There were a lot of interesting things discussed. So let's start with Chris Fenwick this morning. Chris?
I'm not the best person to answer this, but Alex isn't here, so, more me time. What I thought was super interesting, and I've always said this, I think that Grant is fantastic. He's a great demo person. He's super knowledgeable, obviously. He knows his products, obviously, but the fact that he demos them as well as he does always amazes me. My favorite part was when he showed the phone connection gimmick. He flat out said, not really sure how people are going to use this, but it's pretty cool, And so I think that's a daring thing to and maybe he's, blowing smoke, but it's a daring thing to put all that time and R&D into making a thing work, and not really sure how this is going to get used. You'd think he'd have that more thought out, but I thought the demonstration. I also think it's, and maybe it's just because I don't work one-man band stuff, but the fact that all those audio controls are on the switcher, I don't know many TDs that know the difference between a compressor and an EQ.
Well, it'd be interesting. I agree with you. When he did that, I think everybody lit up a little bit. For those of you who didn't see the demo, he had one of the new Blackmagic 6K Pros that they announced yesterday, and you can literally attach a phone to it. And when you attach a phone to it, you can literally broadcast right out of the camera onto the web. So I think a lot of people went, whoa, and it'll be interesting to see how that falls out. Mitchell Hill.
I agree with Chris. I think Grant did a great job. And he did it all upside down because he did everything from the opposite side of the table. So you really got to know your product to do an upside down demo. Great job. As far as the codecs go, boy, when they were running that phone, it seems like that's going to be some flavor RTMP with an H.264 in order to push that much data over a phone connection. I'm not really excited about that because I don't like editing 264. But the ISO does that, so why not?
Yeah, there you go. Next question. Oh, I'm sorry, John Preto. We got two more people here. John?
When he mentioned it had this thing and it had that thing and this thing and this thing, he mentioned the streaming bridge, and the streaming bridge uses H.264.
There you go. George Kennedy. George, good to see you this morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I'm not sure who this unit is targeted to, but I think a lot of us are thinking along the lines of NDI right now, and obviously Blackmagic is not going that route. But I want to see how this is going to play out because obviously they're going in their own direction with IP. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think they're trying to make a market that's kind of separate but very powerful. Courtney?
Yeah, I think you mentioned it. I looked at the operation manual. Only the ISO version of it, the more expensive one, has the streaming bridge. He mentioned it like 8 streaming bridges built in. So it can take up to 8 virtual inputs over the internet.
And again, for those of you who didn't see the announcement, it basically was created. The announcement was about the new switcher they have coming out, a reimagining of one of their existing switcher lines. But he was attaching the Blackmagic new camera to it, and talking about all the capabilities of that switcher. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, if you're looking for, he mentioned specifically some markets like education and other things, but I think there's going to be a wide variety of people who want to do video. And if you're in the Blackmagic ecosystem, it provides kind of an end-to-end, really robust multi-camera switching possibility that is pretty darn well thought out. So we'll see how it goes. More to come as we learn more about it, since it was announced just yesterday. Let's go to the next question.
Guy Cochran from Seattle, Washington. What's a piece of software or mobile app that you think everyone should know about and use or be ready to use in their productions?
Let's start with the Javier. Haven't seen you in a while. It's great to see you, Javier.
Great to see you too. Well, I have three quick ones. The first one is called Sun Surveyor. It's an iOS app that shows you the position of the sun at the moment and at different times and different across the year. So you can plan really well where is the sun gonna come from to you, if it comes from this side, from the other side. The second one is Filmic Pro, because sometimes it's great to have like an extra camera for shooting some stuff, and Filmic has a lot of controls. I really like it. And the third one is more like a workflow, but Frame.io. I really tried to put Frame.io in all my workflows with clients and with different editors, because you can really work into things and note everything. And it's a great submission and review software. So those are my three top ones.
I'm going to +1 on Sun Surveyor because I've been using it for years and I love it. Tom Ferguson.
Well, keeping it simple from the start, I think you need to know the Notes app in and out. The Notes app can not only keep your notes, but you can also do drawings, take photos within, and it can keep you on track.
I'll see him nodding in the panel here. George Kennedy?
Guy, I'm going to go with the live production industry part of it. Stream Deck, Companion. I can't... Every show I go to, I have Companion, I have a Stream Deck. It just ties everything together. It's kind of scary because it's not a mainstream piece of software. I mean, it's kind of is, but it's not. But Companion just ties everything together right now for me.
Excellent. John Preto?
Everybody needs one of these. Got to have a soundboard.
Oh, a mixer.
Soundboard Pro.
Didn't work, John.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't have original sound on. I'll replay. Sorry.
Ah, there we go. So a sound effects insert keypad.
It's interesting that Zoom decided to completely eliminate that as noise.
Keely, help us, save us from going down this tunnel.
I don't think I can. I was actually delighted at that piano, but I'm going to recommend Speedify as a piece of software that so many people are finding incredibly useful to save their live streams. And I know that everybody who's using it is just raving about it. I usually have fantastic internet, but I have bought it anyway because when I travel, I know I'm going to need to combine multiple sources in order to get the kind of performance that I'm used to.
Very nice. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next question.
Craig Kadoki from Toronto, Canada. New Blackmagic designed TV studio, XLR in, MADI out, ClearCom integration, remote internet camera control, super sources, and ISO records. Did they miss anything you were looking for?
Let's start with Mitchell, and then John, and then Tom. So Mitchell?
Really hoping for that video player. They've got a 2 gigabyte memory stick inside of it now, so why not?
Let's go to John Preto.
Video player in 4K. I can't believe this thing's not 4K. Their old one was.
Tom Ferguson?
I wanted it to come in 2 pieces. You know, that control surface, love the T-bar, but I want to put all the electronics in a rack.
Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, I agree with Mitch. I looked at the instruction manual. You have up to 400 seconds of media playback built in with a 2 terabyte card. Yeah, 400 seconds. Yeah.
400 seconds dividing by 60 is not my strong suit. I'm confused
Same
here.
as the old.
George Kennedy?
I'm going to go on Tom's side. I'm kind of torn. I kind of like having my pieces in a rack, but I think the board is fine. 4K, I'm not sure if we're going to see 4K this year in that unit. I mean, NAB's in a couple of weeks, but I think everyone is looking for 4K.
Chris Fenwick?
I think the argument about that is isn't the TV studio line all 1080? Am I wrong? And then, yes, they sell 4K switchers. You can get a 4K switcher. This is not it. This is another thing, right? Am I wrong?
The old one was 4K, out of production.
Courtney?
Well, the TV Studio HD was all 1080, but they did have a 4K switcher, yes, but not the Television Studio line. And I made a mistake. I misspoke. It's not 400 seconds. It's 400 frames. It's even less.
Oh, there's a little difference there. Okay. You only have to divide by 30 or 24 or 29. Anyway, let's move to the next question.
From Venice, California is John Patton asking, Alex has mentioned a preference for a more affordable and more comfortable alternative to the Apple AirPods for daily use. Can you please remind me of the brand and model name and retailer where I can purchase them? Thank you.
Nigel's going to help us out. Nigel?
One always is nervous of speaking for Alex, so I will speak for myself and think what we're talking about is the Ultimate Ears Fit. For some reason, not readily apparent, I got the purplish one. I think I wanted the white or black, but somehow I got a purplish one. You put them in your ears, you turn them on, they form around your ear cavities, and that's what I think he was talking about. I will put a link in the chat.
Do you wear them for long periods of time, Nigel? I'm interested because I find that I get a little airflow around my AirPods Pro, and so for relatively long exercise sessions, an hour or 2 hours, something like that, I don't end up with very much, how do I put this kindly, too much moisture in the ear canal, which can lead to other things. So do they seal off entirely?
I have to tell you, I don't use them for very long periods of time. If I'm listening for very long periods of time, I use over-the-ear headphones. I tend to use these for listening to music if I'm around the house. I prefer the Apple AirPods for phone conversations. But these are very comfortable if you're listening to music and doing stuff, because they fit in your ear so you can move around a lot. But I wouldn't wear them for anything for more than an hour.
Okay. Tom Ferguson?
And if Alex has to walk around all day, talk on the phone and so forth, he's using these Bluetooth headphones by Shocks. It's got great noise reduction on it so that you can sound like you're having a private conversation, but you may be still walking around the set. So there you go. You can get them from Shocks or Amazon.
Chris Fenwick.
Yes. Nigel, how much are those things, that you were talking about?
I think 169-ish.
Okay. I got to say, even with the one fallacy that the AirPod Jordans, whatever these are called, the biggest problem is when you have too many Apple devices and it's like, ooh, got to talk to you. I think they should implement a button or a tap or something where you could just cycle through all the active Bluetooth things around you, so I could go phone, computer, car, or whatever the different things are, or your Apple TV. I think that would be fantastic, and I think that's probably a limitation of the Bluetooth protocol. But I will say that this is the best technology, consumer electronic technology I've purchased in like 20 years. I think these things are amazing. John Preto has a weird ear, so he doesn't like them, but I fall asleep in them. I love there's like a comfort that I feel like when I put them on, I put the noise canceling on, I feel like I'm sitting underneath a pile of sound blankets, and I like being under a lot of sound blankets. I love the silence that they offer. I love these things. Favorite thing I've bought in 2 decades.
I'm lucky because mine fit me as well, but I've heard from other people who they don't, and boy, if you're in the category where it doesn't work, there's nothing more annoying than that. Let's move on to the next question.
Maxfield Hunt in San Francisco, California, asking, maybe revisit AR/VR scanning options beyond the iPhone's capability, and where might one procure such a device in Northern California? Looking to scan a World War II Victory ship located in the San Francisco Bay.
I'm not even going to touch that because Alex is, I believe, a national authority on this because he's done so much LiDAR scanning and things like that. And every time he speaks here on the show about it, I learn a ton. So I really think that this is one of those odd circumstances where I know, Maxfield, it would be great if we could do this for you today, but I really think you should come back when Alex is here because he knows a ton about this subject and he will give you extraordinary advice about it. You also may put something in Discord. He watches matches that very closely, and maybe you can get him to ping back. Javier has a thought in between. Javier?
Well, my thought is about the iOS app for PDFs handwriting, but I can tell
Somebody
you
advance the
right
question,
now.
Bill. Next question.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
There you go. Hasma Gajar from Cape Town, South Africa, asking, looking for an iPad app that converts handwriting to text in a PDF within said app. Open PDF and notes and tried this, and it has an odd behavior. Any suggestions?
Javier.
Okay, I will try using Notability. Notability is an iPad app that is over note taking. I think it has a free version, but you can import PDFs, and you can you can like select a song where you want to write, and you can do handwriting with the Apple Pencil that would translate it to text, and then you can export the PDF. It has a free version, so try it, and maybe it will help you.
Excellent, Harshid.
Yeah, so in the accessibility space, there's an app called Wavestream Writer specifically, and that it is basically a multitude of apps. It's reader, writer, and I forget the third one that they have, but you may try the Wavestream reader part or the writer part of it to see if you could get text pulled off a little bit easier that way. And each app will give you a little bit of a background to what they have in the app store. The iPhone App Store.
Hopefully this is getting better and better for people who need the service. Let's go to the next question.
From Douglas Carmichael, what niche do you see the new ATEM Television Studio High Def fitting into, and why haven't we seen a Constellation 4K yet?
Mitchell, start us off.
Well, the good news, Douglas, is there is a Constellation 4K. Anything that has the HD moniker is a 1080 device. And as far as the niche goes, I think it's already ready to occupy the same niche that our ATEM Mini Extremes do. It's just sort of an updated version with a lot less buttons.
Courtney.
I see it for a lot of smaller venues, like local television stations can put in a van and put out there to do, local high school sports, things like that, sports venues, schools, training facilities. It's going to fill a lot of facilities like that do HD training and need a remote situation, since it can communicate over cellular and send its signal and can stream live from the unit itself. It'd be very handy to do for local sports and local TV stations.
And Alex is here. Alex.
Yeah, sorry, I had some technical issues this morning. I think that for some of us, the announcement, it's exciting. They've got a bunch of things that are going to make things a lot easier. And I think that you're absolutely right that it's going to be something that for people doing kind of bread and butter work, it's a great piece of hardware that puts a lot of stuff together. I think for those of us who felt like that Blackmagic was doing things that were aspirational, like that we could grow into, it doesn't seem like that's their focus. So their focus is they've kind of figured out what their niche is, and they're kind of just really making sure that they serve that niche inside of that. But they're not, we're not seeing a lot of new 4K stuff. We're not seeing things that are, it has some stuff that is good. It's like, it's good. So the switcher is like, it's not a switcher that, like, for instance, that I would get. It's a switcher that, but if you're doing a lot of smaller corporate stuff, I think that it would, or educational or those kinds of things, which has become their kind of something that's making a lot of money for them. I think that what really showed that up was the ATEM Mini, the numbers that they sold of the ATEM Mini and the Mini Extreme. This is like a transitional product. So people like me are hoping for is that we see something more aggressive before we go to, add NAB or going to NAB than what we have here. And they're just pre-releasing this to kind of set things up, because we kind of went from a Constellation 8K to something that is much more tame. so we'll see how it goes.
Next question.
From Andy Kokendorfer from Vieira, Florida, asking, new CloudLifter-X with 36 dB of gain. Thoughts on using this with an SM7B?
Mitchell, what do you think?
Our general consensus with any of these devices to provide extra gain out of your microphone into your preamp is that if there's any noise there, it's going to multiply that noise problem too. So best only to use that in a last resort where you just can't get enough volume out of your microphone. But I haven't seen that happen yet.
Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, 100% where Mitch is. I would say that I would never use a CloudLifter as a normal pipeline. I have CloudLifters in my case, and that's if all else goes wrong, I can get the gain up. But I would never ever build it into a standard pipeline. It adds way too much noise to the signal.
Next question.
And we brought this one back in just for you, Alex, from Maxfield Hunt in San Francisco. Maybe revisit the AR/VR scanning options beyond the iPhone's capability, and where might one procure such a device in Northern California? Looking to scan a World War II victory ship located in the San Francisco Bay.
Alex, I'm glad you're back because you're the guy for this.
Yeah. So that is most likely it's in Richmond, I believe. It's a victory ship there. And I believe that, I just did some research before the show. So anyway, but I think that you're going to need something more than just a phone. And the problem really is it's too complex. There's too many things. It's too large and too complex to do with a phone. The phone's really good for a room or two in doing those things, but it has a very short range, 25 feet. So the best thing to do is to figure out who you can partner with that might have a real LiDAR system. So BLK 360 is what I have, and we should talk because it's only Richmond is only 20 minutes away from my house. And so a BLK would be a lot of fun. I have some friends that have some bigger scanners, but I think that finding a way to scan that data and put that together. And when I saw I think this has been brought up a little bit in Discord. I think it could be a really fun project for we've been kind of looking for what to scan for people to work on. And maybe we can take parts of this and scan it and have people kind of use it as a test case or a learning opportunity. And if that's something you're interested in, contact me in Discord.
Excellent. Courtney, you had a thought?
I was just looking for a place online, and I did find this place called Aeronautica 3D. Excuse me, 3D. And they do rent the Leica BLK360s and Matterport Pro 3D. So look them up. They're in the San Francisco area, so they have rentals and may have some trained personnel that can even run it for you.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is here. When Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel did their show swap stunt last year, how was that handled? I've heard the Switch mentioned.
It wouldn't be surprising. Alex has talked a little bit about the Switch. It's a centralized hub where a lot of the media lines come in and go out of. Alex, can you give us some more details?
I was in host mode, not panel mode. The only part that I think that was really hard, they just flew to each other's set. The only part that was hard was to talk back and forth to each other live. And my guess is they would use the Switch for that. The Switch is basically a private fiber network that connects almost every network to each other. Almost every TV network, arenas, stadiums, all those things are all connected over the Switch. The latency from LA to New York would be nominally about 42 milliseconds. That's the speed of the fiber. So it's a little more than a frame. There's a little bit more when it comes to encoding and decoding the frames, and so you end up with about a round trip of about 100 milliseconds a leg at most, sometimes as low as 75. So it'd be very comfortable for them to talk back and forth with each other. So that's my guess. My guess is that's what happened there.
Next question.
From Tom Ferguson in Phoenix, Arizona, and right here on our panel today. Alex, it was 1 year ago today that Office Hours was promoted to version 2.0. Please give us a report card update on the continuing progress to the next stage.
Take it away.
We've come a long way since 2.0. So, just the team has done an immense work. We're going to do a whole, second hour in the next couple of weeks to talk about like where we are right now and where we're going with 2.5. And, a big thing that, that's happened here is a lot of things have been, a lot of things are a lot more automatic. A lot of the pieces are running a lot smoother. We're now, this morning, as of yesterday, and we verified it this morning, we're getting 5.1 in the test streams, which a lot of you probably haven't seen yet, but we'll start putting them into a more opened area. But 5.1 in the test streams with HDR, and so we're pretty close to that process. A lot of the, there's been just a lot of work on the infrastructure and we're pushing the outer envelope. We're pushing against things that are crashing, and it's because no one's ever been there before. So like when we tell a manufacturer, like it's crashing, we have to send our logs and send what we're doing and show them how we're putting it together, because there just isn't any, nobody's out in the area that we're in. And so I think that we're helping to pave a way for something new. and we're getting a lot of bruises on the way. But the team has done just an incredible amount of work and done just really good updates to that infrastructure that really are going to set us up for the next 6 months. But we'll talk about it more in the next couple of weeks.
Let's go to the next question.
From Morgan Price in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. Any thoughts on the new Studio 6K Pro versus a Pocket 6K Pro? So many similarities on the sensor, etc. What differences are intriguing to you and why?
Alex?
Yeah, so I think that the big thing is are you using it in a studio or using it around town? So that's the real choice. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of feature sets that are built into the studio, like comms and headphones, and for comms, and the way it's built and how it's set up. If you're using it in a studio environment, it's going to be a great solution for that. If you're trying to go out and if you want to take it out and shoot something in the field, probably not a good solution for that. And so it's got all the pieces that you need for a small studio to shoot something. So I think that you're kind of in this zone of you have a small studio and you start getting those education, corporate, house of worship, those types of things, smaller studios, that the new studio is going to be a great solution. The next step up, and again, also as a remote contribution, and with the being able to do this over the internet, connecting it to a phone, which is kind of amazing. So there's a lot of things that it does for live production. If you're out there using a cinema and you want to shoot something that you're going to use for VOD, I'd probably go back to the regular 6K, the Cinema 6K. That's what it's built for.
Next question.
From Chris Fenwick in Emeryville, California. Alex, do you think that Blackmagic Design has avoided autofocus development because Sony is so far out ahead and they figure they can't compete? And did you order that Sony camera yet?
And Chris weighs his own hand on this, but let's go to Alex first.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that autofocus is hard. I think it costs a lot of money and it's really hard to do. And, someday they may do autofocus. But when you look at the quality of 490 tracking points or something in a Sony camera, it's, it will take a long time. Nobody else does it as well as Sony. So the next closest is probably Panasonic and then Canon. I think that that's a huge lift. There's just certain things about cameras that are really hard, and autofocus is one of them. So I think that it's going to take them some time to do that. And they built it for a specific thing, and people have built around that. I haven't bought the Sony camera yet. I'm going to wait for NAB. Like, we're close enough. We're almost within 6 weeks. I was like, I will feel really bummed if I buy an FX30 or whatever I end up with to get. If I buy it now, I think I'll be bummed. Sony does usually use NAB as a launch pad, so I'm going to wait to see what happens there. Also, Blackmagic this is still 6 weeks out. They announced some things. It doesn't mean that's all they're going to announce. So I think it would make sense to wait. We're now in that zone of, unless you really need it, you should probably not buy anything in audio and video for the next 6 weeks, because we just don't know what's going to happen next.
Chris, did you want to respond?
No, I was curious, Alex. By any chance, have you changed your camera since yesterday?
I have, and very quickly, and so it's not set up correctly right now. So I
saw something different.
I got all ready. Here's the worst part. I got up early. I was going through the questions. We were doing HDR and 5.1 tests, and everything was working. And I had my tea. I got everything set up, and I looked up, because I had to send the Sony camera back yesterday. I looked up and there was no camera. That's why I was late today. I was like, there's no camera there. And so I have to quickly, it's just one of those things, like do. Oops, and so
what are you on today then?
I'm on the Blackmagic right now. The problem is it's not focused in the right place, and it wasn't.
It's not right. Yeah,
it'll be right tomorrow.
But I noticed the difference from yesterday. That Sony the $14,000 or whatever that camera is looks really good.
It does, and the problem is this focus thing is like I have to lean in and figure out where it is, and then also I just got it up really quickly, and so it's kind of cockeyed and it's too close, and there's a bunch of things that I have to fix to be fair to Blackmagic, it's not all Blackmagic. It's mostly that it got set up in 2 minutes, and I'm just trying to get to the show, and then I somehow am answering every question here, so I'm not able.
Out of curiosity, what's your f-stop at right now? Do you know?
I don't know. It doesn't display it on the ATEM. It's probably very wide. So I just haven't had literally came on the show and I haven't had time to sink it in because I keep.
I'm not trying to make you look bad. I'm just curious.
I know. But I just want to be fair. Like Magic, we care. This is a horribly set up. Like it was set up in 3 minutes, and I just was like, oh, I got to get into the show, and so yeah.
That's my nightmare. You look up, ready to go live. There's something's completely wrong. Yeah. You can't instantly fix it.
Yeah, and it'll get better by the end of the show. It'll actually probably be better. So anyway.
Mitchell, you had a thought?
Welcome to this segment of Let's Pick on Alex's Camera.
Yeah.
To your point about getting and buying stuff at timing around NAB, I find that NAB is a good wash point for a lot of stuff. And one thing is getting B stock, stuff that they've used at the show. A lot of times you can get them at discounts, but that FR7 is really popular, so there may not be any B stock.
You can get... The funny thing about NAB, if you're ever looking for a motorized, one of those automatic massage chairs, there's a company out of Santa Rosa that always has them in, I think, like the North Hall or South Hall. They have this huge thing, and you just sit down and get a massage, and then they sell them to you for like a third of the price. I've never bought one, but I always think about it. I'm always tired at some point and sit down in that little cove of. So Mitchell, if you're looking for an inexpensive massage chair, they have them.
I could use
that was my strategy at NAB for many years for my grip gear. I would hover around Manfrotto or Avenger or one of the other companies on the last day on Wednesday and just say, do you really want to ship that back? I got some cash in my pocket. And if you get to exactly the right person who has the authority to say yes, you can walk out with a shiny new sand for 50% of its retail.
Been there, done it. It works. It really does.
Yeah, shipping is expensive for them. Anyway, let's go on to the next question.
From John Foltson, Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Good morning, all. What are the impressions of the new Blackmagic Studio Camera Pro, and how much of a difference will it make?
Let's start with John Preto here.
I love that the camera's got Ethernet built into it, and if you've got an operator, it's great, but no autofocus. So I'm getting ready to upgrade my my web camera, and I'm looking at that camera versus the Sony. I just love the autofocus on the Sony. So we'll see.
Courtney, you want to help us out?
Yeah, it doesn't do autofocus, but the new Micro Four Thirds and EF lens mounts allow you to use a lot of, still lenses and EF lenses and MFT lenses, and they have the electrical connection to do remote focus and remote zoom. So you can actually control the focus and zoom over the Ethernet from the switcher itself. So that's going to be pretty handy.
George.
All I kept thinking is, why couldn't this be a RoboCam? But I think it's a decent update. Again, I'm just looking at everything he's doing in the connectivity space and wondering what there's no. It needs to be a clear path of how these cameras and the whole ecosystem is going to be used. I mean, we kind of don't know that right now. So I think it's got the sensors that we use here in office hours, but beyond that, it's just another upgrade. But I'm really looking to see what NAB is going to bring. I'm kind of like hopeful.
There you go, Alex. Yeah,
I have a sneaky suspicion that the reason that we're seeing a lot of 1080p is because we're going to see a lot more IP, and the 4K is harder. so anyway, so I think that I think that might be part of the case. I do think that if we thought NDI was coming to Blackmagic, we can give that up now. They've got their own codecs of how they want to go back and forth between stuff, and that codec evidently works over LAN, WAN, all these other things. And so I think that they're kind of laying out, how they're gonna do that.
Chris Fenwick.
But isn't it possible that this whole phone connection thing is kind of a gateway drug to other IP-based connectivity things like NDI, or what's?
I think it's something like. I think you're 100% right. It's going to be like NDI, just not going to be NDI.
I understand. I think you misunderstood what I was saying. So Grant is about, cables and connectivity and switchers and routers and bears, oh my. Okay. So, but now he's added the phone connection. And then there was the stream bridge, okay? And so it's sort of the gateway drug into other types of IP connections. Do you think NDI is just absolutely never? We're never going to see NDI in a Blackmagic switcher.
I wouldn't say hell would have to freeze over, but it would have to get really cold. Like it would, like it wouldn't have to be like pure ice, but it would be chilly and rainy in hell before NDI got used in Blackmagic. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of water under that bridge, and so I think that but I think that in general that it looks like Blackmagic is building their own way of doing this. For the most part, Blackmagic doesn't really, with the way that their clientele works, they don't really need to interact with other people that much. They do that a little bit, but as you get into that ecosystem, and again, there's key problems with that ecosystem, like what we're dealing with autofocus and so on and so forth. But a lot of us will stick with a lot of those things because the rest of the ecosystem works so well. And so I think that that ecosystem is a real lock-in. And I think that I think it's easier for them to innovate between all of their equipment by not dealing with an external, dealing with something that's external. The standardization means you can interact with a lot of things. And if you think that that's what you want to do, then you do that. But when you don't do that, like Apple doesn't do that for a lot of things like messages, it allows you to innovate a lot faster. You can fix things faster. You can do things faster. You can make things work. And so you can move quicker when you're not trying to figure out, especially if somebody else owns that pipeline, you're not going to be able to, you know that you need to add this kind of data to it to make your cameras work, and you can't do that because it's not your format. So I think that there's a lot of advantages to Blackmagic, both in this area of lock-in as well as in the area of innovation, that they're going to probably want to hang on to their own connectivity between their own equipment. I think that's my guess.
George, another thought?
Alex, so I know he keeps showing the phone as a connectivity point. So I'm wondering if something can be used like a pep link or so forth to put in between as a connectivity point. So it'll be good to see if we could put a pep link to make sure we have a high bandwidth.
Based in part on the thing that we did a week ago today, last Friday when we were out at the tennis thing with Jeff Keithley, and he had Sky walking around with a handheld iPhone. The quality of that picture really did surprise me. I mean, it was really nice, and it seemed pretty stable over the course of his moving around there. Is that part of this new reality, part of why Blackmagic is thinking about this?
I mean, I think that a lot of people have talked about 5G working, and when 5G works, it's great. It just doesn't work in very many places. So that's the real challenge. And so I think that where 5G is working, this could work out really, really well. It just depends on where you're at, and there are some places, like, the irony of it is in some arenas and stadiums, the 5G works really well because they built tons and tons of transponders into those locations. So coverage there actually could work really well, to do that in a way that 4G doesn't. 4G and LTE tend not to. 5G tends to lean more towards being like Wi-Fi, but without the downsides of Wi-Fi. So it'll be really interesting to see how it pans out.
Chris Fenrick, real quick.
I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we were watching Sky's feed from the tennis match, wasn't he just dialing in on his own phone into Zoom, and he was just another window in the Zoom? I don't think he was even going through Keithley's.
Yeah, exactly.
Switcher.
And that's but isn't that the equivalent of the new Blackmagic camera with a phone just dialing in essentially as a feed into a show?
Kind of, except that the latency will be higher, and the latency and the quality will probably be higher from the camera going into the switcher than it is to Zoom, because it's not using. I don't think it's using WebRTC. So
interesting. Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, and I think the Ethernet connection, not the USB 3 to the phone connection, the Ethernet connection is a 10 gig Ethernet connection that'll allow speed and plus communications, bidirectional communications, return video and power all over a Cat 6A. So you just have to plug one cable in and run that back to your switcher, to a managed switch, and you have video communications and tally and all that over a single Cat 6 cable and power. So
they
cable.
mentioned that in that there was more than just the signal going out. Let's go to the next question.
From Tom Ferguson in Phoenix, Arizona, was the Blackmagic design announcement all we should expect, or will there be at least one more thing in NAB?
George Kennedy.
So I already asked about a press conference. If there's no press conference at NAB, Blackmagic will more than likely drop a few more things leading up to NAB. That's all I'm going to say about that. But one of the attractions of going to NAB is going to a Blackmagic press conference.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've been there for years. We used to see each other at it. Have you gotten notification that they're doing that in the morning of the first day? Would it be Sunday morning now? I guess it'd be Sunday morning now.
I don't think they're going to have a press conference.
Okay, so they're not looking at that as one of their primary information.
See a few more things. I mean, they normally have a huge booth, so NAB is going to be interesting this year.
Absolutely. Go ahead. I know Alex wants to get in on this. Alex?
Oh, no, all I was going to say is you're going to have to find your bagels somewhere else. Like that morning.
Tom Fergus said that.
Well, my wallet's been hibernating, and it now needs to know if it sees its shadow. So anything would be interesting.
The groundhog conundrum.
You know, I think it'll be interesting to see if they do some more announcements between now and NAB. If they do, it makes way more sense. And what we're seeing is this move away from the live to video live. I think Blackmagic could probably go a little faster in those, they're doing it as live as, inside of their studio, but that's a much better environment for Blackmagic, for Grant. I mean, I've been to many of those press events, and he does an amazing job. He's one of the few CEOs that can do what we saw yesterday. And so he does an amazing job at demoing those, and he does a good job. But at NAB, you just load it in. You just got everything working. It's the first day. You're trying to get everything, sorted out. And you don't have the level of control that you have if you do this at, in your home office in Melbourne. And so I think where you can rehearse it, everything's just the way it is, and then you just walk in and do it. And so I think that when you think about the larger audience, I think it makes way more sense. And we saw Apple release 2 products with a video, two different videos and 3 products. I think you're going to see more and more of companies starting to stopping doing the live thing because it's just not as good as the video version. So you're not actually having the impact that that we used to have. And we used to do it that way because we didn't have video. And so now we have video, there's not really as much a reason to do it. So I think that it's going to be really interesting. I think that you're going to see less companies over the next couple of years doing the live keynotes and pushing more towards video.
Yeah, the thing that surprised me about yesterday was that normally they would have 3 or 4 or 5 products in the big Grant keynote. This was really centered around the one switcher plus the camera. Yeah.
It's usually 90. Like I remember one day there was one NAB on a Monday morning or Tuesday morning, whatever. It was like 90 products. Because they talked about everything. Like here's a mini converter and here's a this and here's a that. They don't even announce much of that anymore. Or they go, oh, here it is. But it makes way more sense to not have a 3-hour session, having an hour here and a half an hour there. It gives every product a place to live in that space. And so I think that, and they're getting better at telling us it's going to be about switchers and cameras, so we know what we're walking ourselves into. So, but I think that they're doing a better. I think that more video announcements make way more sense, and then you let people like us do watch parties, talk about it during the thing. So
Nigel wanted to get into this. Nigel,
yeah, I wouldn't do a press review at NAB or a CES. I've done those, and they're just complete nightmares. And you get yourself completely backed into something that's really hard to pull out of when the thing doesn't work. And all of us have been places where we're about to announce something, and then suddenly we go, yeah, not so much. So that's hard. I would just consider one other thing. I checked showstoppers. There's no showstoppers this year at NAB.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see, and I don't know whether that was NAB hated showstoppers. Like that was something that I don't know if something got pressed or pulled there because it drove them crazy that companies could basically sideswipe the whole thing because the press would all just go to those things. And so I don't know if there's, I don't know if Pepcom is doing anything. That's the other big one at NAB. There was the big one at NAB where showstoppers and Pepcom. But I know that it's interesting. I think a lot of the companies that were not big enough to go to NAB to the floor, but were big enough to go to showstoppers aren't going anymore. Like they just decided there's not ROI. I think that's part of the problem.
Let's go to the next question.
From Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. Alex, when you said you'd really like an M.2 slot in a Blackmagic design switcher, was that a little foreshadowing?
Alex?
It wasn't, and I didn't get what I asked for. So if you think I was foreshadowing, I didn't get what I wanted, which was playback. I don't care about the record. Sure, the record's fine. In fact, I find that to be more cumbersome to do it in the switcher. Like I don't want to connect the switcher to an FTP or pull things off or have it shown as a drive. I want an external drive for the For the switcher, I want an external drive that I can just pull off and walk away with. I don't want to connect the switcher or pull things off of it or anything else like that. So it is what I asked for, and I'm only hoping that somehow they do a firmware update that lets us have what we want, which is we just want to either have a drive built into the switcher or plug a drive into the outside and be able to treat it like a hyperdeck. Like, it just doesn't, like it is, we're almost there. And we don't, again, we have a media pool, but the media pool didn't get any bigger. So I did not get what I was asking for.
Mitchell.
Yeah, if you're using the M.2, I think it's a 2 terabyte card that they put in there. If you didn't have that and you were using an external drive, what size would you use, Alex? Would it be 2 or more?
I mean, usually when I've only recorded a couple times off the ISO. I have hyperdecks. I have lots of them. Then we usually record to that. And so if I'm recording the stuff there, I typically put a 1 terabyte drive on it because I'm just not, it's not in the format that it captures in. If I'm capturing an hour or half an hour or whatever, it's plenty of drive space. So it's not. So I think that. Again, I think it's cool, and I think that people will use it. But what I really wanted was to be able to play video out, to back into it. And it seems like that obviously eats into a business model that they already have.
Courtney?
Yeah, they may have trouble doing synchronized playback for alpha channel and graphics out of that M2 slot. Maybe that's why they couldn't do it yet. Not that it can't be done. But I think they're afraid of eating into their hyperdeck market because it would kind of negate the purchase of a hyperdeck. But maybe they'll sell it as a plug-in that costs 1.5 times the cost of a hyperdeck, and so you can have it. Yeah.
I don't know if it would really cut into their market for hyperdecks, because when we play out hyperdecks, we're playing them out to lots of different locations. They have to go out to this, that, and the other thing. They're not. I mean, it definitely cuts into some, but there's a lot of places.
It has 2 aux outputs with switchers on each, so you could still do that.
I think that
itself.
There's a lot of places where I'd still rather have a hyperdeck, and we're going to record. Most of what we do with hyperdecks is not play out; it's record. And we want to record ProRes or at least ProRes LT or ProRes HQ or whatever. That's not what this would do, I think, and so I think that I don't think it would necessarily replace that. I think that you're probably right, or whoever said that it could be the alpha channel, issue of playing out 2 things, or just that it's not, it's designed to have a video pipeline, and how do you get from the memory to the video pipeline would be its own problem. But they know how to do that. They build cards that do that. So, it would just be, it would be really exciting to be able to load a bunch of stuff for a show, into the switcher and not have to think about it anymore. It appears that they're just not quite there yet.
Chris Fenwick, you had a thought?
I love the line you said, Alex. If they would just build what we want. Just, Grant, what are you doing? Build what I want.
Exactly.
To be clear, it does have USB ports on it, and you can record to USB flash.
Yeah, so it can do it. I'm just saying I don't care about the internal recording. I want internal playback.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for you.
That's all I want. I think a lot of people would want that. That's all I'm saying. I think I'm not the only person in the world that wants that.
We're not going to be 100% happy. Oh, well. Let's go to the next question.
Alexander Knight from Vancouver, BC, Canada. Did anyone see the Discord announcement that you can stream 4K using the AV1 codec and the Nvidia 40 series GPUs? They claim at only 8 megabits per second. Sounds efficient. Is this something we can utilize?
Excellent question for Keely Dunn. Keely.
It'd be a much more excellent question if I had more advanced knowledge of this, but literally the alert splashed up when I reopened Discord this morning. And ordinarily, this is how Discord does their updates, is they update the software, but you don't get it unless you actually shut Discord down, which is something that I don't do ever. So there it was on February 21st. I think the most exciting part of this, of course, is the announcement that they are looking at employing this in other hardware graphics cards, because for a lot of us, that is not a graphics card that we are using. So I think what's really interesting is how Discord can really push the envelope on video processing and audio and really get that out. And that's part of their freemium model by making that available to Nitro subscribers. So I'm a big fan of this, and I love seeing the innovation. I just wish that they would I just wish they would figure out how to promote this a lot better so that more people know about it.
Alex?
So far, I have found their AV utilization to be quirky. Like, so that's like it's just kind of like it's like streaming in audio and video done by people who don't do streaming audio and video. That's what it feels like, is that they have, we can do this, but it's just like it's all like twisted like 90 degrees. And so when I see it, I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. But so far, like we were like, oh, we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff in Discord inside of another server that I was in. Oh, but we can only do it. We can only have the interaction with 25, or we can only have this. Like there's like these weird like limitations that we, aren't used to anymore, that we kept on running into enough sharp edges that we were like, yeah, let's not do that. and just we went back to Zoom. So I think I'm looking forward to seeing it. And it'll be really interesting to see, what kind of quality they get out of it. It hasn't been a clean transition to they know that that's an important market for them. I haven't seen a lot of compelling that it works as well as it could. That's all I would say.
Mitchell?
Do you think Apple would ever support Nvidia cards again? Because they don't now.
No chance. They build their own GPUs. They're not gonna do that, because the problem is that the OS depends on the GPU. That's why Apple wants control of it, and Nvidia wants control of it because it's their card. And so they both have valid reasons for wanting to control the code base, and they're never going to agree on that, because they both need it, and they can't both have it. So the chances of that happening now, that especially Apple's building it all into their own silicon, chances of them supporting Nvidia is almost zero.
Let's go to the next question.
Nick Batt in the United Kingdom asking, is NAMM in the diary for office hours? If not, why not?
Courtney?
Well, probably because it's the 3 days before NAB. It's the 15th. It's the 13th through the 15th, and NAB is the 15th through the 19th. So it'd be a tough job to cover both. I don't know what Alex has planned. Maybe.
Didn't we do Cinegear and NAMM kind of the same way, just right at one after the other last year?
Well, they were 2 weekends apart, not 1 day apart, and it wasn't part of NAB. We have a lot of people going to NAB. Like right now, I think our team for NAB, and you can still sign up for this for the next couple of days, but I think the team's like 20 people, including the folks that are commentating and some of the people that are going to be on the ground and everything else. And so we have a lot of energy kind of going towards NAB. And so trying to do that and then have NAMM right before it is really difficult for us. And I think it's going to be difficult for a lot of people. I think, just as Courtney said, I have no idea what went through somebody's head to put NAMM right in front of NAB. Like, it's two very, very similar markets that they just stacked. And I get that they probably couldn't get the days they wanted and everything else, but there had to be some other day that they could have put it on. Almost any other weekend for NAMM would have been better than the weekend that they chose. So I think that, because if you think about all of the vendors, they have a lot of these vendors, especially smaller ones, have a booth. They don't have two booths. So now they don't have, I don't know. I'd be really curious to see what they do, because it's making them choose between NAMM and NAB. And so that you have to decide, okay, this is my big vertical, I'm going to go to NAMM but not NAB, or I'm going to go to NAB and not NAMM. So I think it damages both sides of that for them to do what they did there. So I don't understand it. But anyway, we may go and do a very light coverage, but I will admit the reason that we're going to go is because there's some systems that I want to test for NAB. So we may go to NAB, a couple of us go down and do some kind of live, thing, probably in after hours, and maybe to a YouTube thing, but not part of office hours. But the reason we'll do it is because I want to hammer on some systems before we get to NAB. So we also may, depending on how quickly we get things, may go to GDC a little bit, for an hour or two, just to see. Again, we're requesting some hardware, and if we get the hardware to borrow, we'll do a couple things throughout March to try to get ready for these things, and then we'll try to. But the NAMM will be kind of a dress rehearsal. It'll probably be a pretty good one. It'll be an HDR in 5.1. So if we go to NAMM, it'll be a different kind of stream than you've ever seen, and we'll just do it there to see if it makes sure it works, and then we'll use it more in NAB.
Shakeout time. Next question.
From Hashid Trivedi in Daytona Beach, Florida, and here in our panel, Nigel, what type of over-the-ear headphones do you prefer for music listening or shows that may provide you with fun listening like an in-home system?
Nigel, take it away.
So I can only tell personally that if I'm wireless, I am using the AirPod Maxes. if I'm wired, because I'm into my mixer, I have a set of Technics which have a cable on them. I can't promise you that they're the best. The best I actually have ever heard, I think, were $15,000 or $20,000 headphones, but they came with their own preamps and amps and stuff. But I find the Apple ones comfortable to wear. And thank you for the question, because it reminded me I have to charge mine before my flight to the UK tonight.
There you go. Next question.
Next question in from Tlaloc Lopez Waterman in Maryland. When configuring a Yamaha Rio3224-D2, how do you get the IP settings to take? I make the change and the resolved device address does not change. Thoughts?
There's a note that those devices don't change until the factory initialization is done. So if you haven't done that, put it in there. Hopefully that could help. If not, come back. We'll try farther. Next question.
John Swan, Houston, Texas, asking, what's the best combination of equipment to effectively show a TV screen on camera? The backlight from TVs messes with the camera, and lighting the instructor creates a glare on the TV as well. We're needing to demonstrate a Zoom Room touchscreen device.
Courtney, start.
Well, start by turning the backlight all the way up if you have a backlight control on the television screen, because when you start to dim down the backlight, it chops the signal of, if it has the old school vacuum fluorescent backlights, or even the new LED backlights, they use pulse width pulse width modulation to control the level of the backlight. So turn it all the way up. That means it won't be chopped, so you'll have more of a chance of getting less flicker on it. And then you'll have to adjust your exposure on the camera and your lighting to that. Make sure the camera and your lights are set to the same color temperature as the backlight of the monitor, because if you try and adjust the color temperature of the monitor, it's going to get you're going to lose a lot of the sweet spot. You're going to have to be right on axis to get the colors right. Any movement off axis, the color's going to shift on you. Let's say get a camera with a variable shutter and have it open as much as you can and still get the exposure correctly. So you want to have a lens that you can stop down or put an ND filter in if you need, because you're going to be opening up the shutter to 360 degrees or more than 180 degrees to eliminate the flicker, and adjust the shutter angle to eliminate any flicker at the exposure that you get. That's my suggestion. Tilt the monitor down so you don't have reflections of the lights if you're lighting from overhead. And maybe find a monitor, if you do have the capability, don't get a monitor that has a glossy front on it. Make sure it has a matte finish on it and non-reflective coating on the front.
Let's go to the next question.
From Tony Mobley in Noonan, Georgia, asking, has any of the panelists done that ATEM switcher update?
Not sure which one you're talking about. Let's see if Tom or Nigel can help us. Tom?
Version 9. No new features, but works just fine. Yeah.
Nigel, is that your experience?
Yeah, ditto. I moved to 9.1 before I put it on my main machine. It worked fine. It's now on my main machine. It's clean, but I don't know it really attaches anything interesting to the ATEM that I have.
And let's go to the next question. We're going to have to do this pretty quickly because we're getting close to the top of the hour, but it's a big question. Go ahead.
Inquiring minds want to know, what was the first NLE system you used?
Okay, let's see. I started, actually, I think, with Final Cut back in 1999 at NAB when it was first introduced. Before that, I had been just a AB roll hardware editor. So, Chris Fenwick, where did you start?
Early Premiere, like Premiere 1 or 2 or something like that.
Yeah, back in the early days when Randy Ubilos had just written it. John Preto.
When you bought a win-off capture card for the PC ISA board, you got Pinnacle Studio with it, version 1 or 2. But I was also at the release when NewTek released the Flyer at Caesar's Palace, whatever year that was.
Tom Ferguson.
NLE, you had it so easy. We started out with linear editing and used these huge beasts. And of course, we graduated up to a Datatron controller for all of that to actually take care of the 17 frames you had to push the button before the edit would actually happen.
Very hard to get either of those in a briefcase. Mitch Hill.
Media 100.
There you go. Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I used the VR2000 with Editech built in, which was the Ampex 2-inch quad machine.
George Kennedy.
Early Premiere, but I enjoyed Beta AB.
Nice. And Alex?
Premiere.
Premiere. Okay, so a
1.0.
lot of people started with Premiere after Randy wrote it for, what was it, Key Grip or something?
It was 1991 or two.
Yeah, boy, a long way back. The industry has come a long way. Don't forget that we are still, you're in the last bare days of being able to volunteer for the NAB cruise. So if you want to do that, definitely get into the back end. Tell us you're interested in doing that. We have a lot of people who are going to NAB. Should be a fascinating piece of coverage. And beyond NAB, just if you want to volunteer to help on some of the aspects of the show here daily, remember you can go on to our Discord, or you can go on to follow the email links that you get every day, and it's going to take you right to chances to become more involved with office hours. You'll find it an incredible community of very nice and very technically competent people, and we always can use more skills. All right, that said, it's 8 o'clock, and that means it is time for our special guest. I've been looking forward to this since I heard he was coming. Larry O'Connor from OWC, someone who was, I think, even he doesn't know how much he's touched many of the lives of the people on the panel. That organization, Otherworld Computing, has helped us with memory and hard drives and just helping us increase the capacity of our systems so that we can get the work done we need to do and enhance our lives. So, Larry, it is fabulous to have you here. Welcome to Office Hours.
And I'll give a little backdrop here before we bring Larry in here. So a lot of us are heavy OWC users, so we have a lot of OWC, as Bill intimated. And Jason, was talking to us and just going, okay, they're working on this thing that you have to see, and we have to bring this in. And so we're going to hand it off to Jason to talk a little bit with Larry about what the new stuff is and how it works. So Jason, I'm gonna hand it off to you.
Okay, well, for the third time, it's my profound pleasure to introduce Larry O'Connor, who is the CEO of OWC. And we've got a few new products. Larry, I think we met maybe, 5 years ago, something like that. And we spent a good 3 hours talking about these. So you've built a lot of docks over the years, and the way that the design is kind of come together has started with stuff where, most of the time you end up with, big power bricks on something. And I guess you're here today to at least give us an overview of, some of the newer stuff. And really what we're after here is how far can you push a Mac Mini with some of these new products. And I've got a really cool thing to show you a little bit later in the hour with a 6K camera and what class compliance can really mean. So for those of you that don't know, Larry's been trying to get more out of computing since before he had a learner's permit, right? That was the origin.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, right. What was it? 14? You were refilling ink cartridges or something? That's the lore, at least.
Actually, reinking ribbons. I don't think we had print cartridges back. Not yet.
Even better. So it's of course a long way to go from ribbons to docks, but give me a sense of at least how you came about, going, how do I explain this? How you came about,
Larry, how did you get started? How did OWC get started? Like, was this something out of your, out of your garage, or how did you get to it?
It didn't start in the garage, but pretty close. It started in a barn in the country for all practical purposes. And it was kind of out of necessity. I mean, number one, the drive to get more at that point from an Apple IIgs actually that I had, and not being able to drive, and just the inconvenience in general of having to tear a system down, bring it someplace, be given a really high quote to do, but at that point was behind a black curtain kind of thing, and tearing that apart and saying there needs to be greater accessibility. We can do more with these systems. I can make it easier. I mean, it was experimentation. Saying, why do people have to go through all this headache and hassle to do a simple upgrade? And beyond that, do people understand and realize, in addition to how easy an upgrade is, that they can do it and the benefits of these upgrades. So it kind of drove, and that is the waste not. I mean, I've always, where we grew up, always waste not, want not, and kind of applied that into the computing space. Let's make this stuff go further. Let's make it more reliable. Let's build things that last and help things that are already working, give people the opportunity to keep them working longer and better.
And so you had Apple II GS. What year was this? You started this in the barn?
Oh, that'd be 1987. And 1988 was when I was remaking, and late 88 and 89, I got into memory upgrades. Just, again, out of personal necessity. And it was a time, and this was really a big catalyst. There had been an earthquake in Asia, which messed up a lot of the lithography machines and that were used for production of DRAM. DRAM got very expensive, and something kind of happened in the Apple market where everybody raised their prices. It was a commodity because of what had happened. But after things stabilized and supply was more normalized and costs had come back down in the Apple market, nobody dropped their prices. And right. There's not to really belabor and go into the long story, but when I was in school, we had a news depot that was down the street from maybe 3 blocks from school. I'd go in after they had a few arcade games and whatnot, and they had just about every publication known to mankind at that time. And Computer Shopper happened to be one of them. Used to be that big, giant, awesome. I don't know, just every month. I mean, it's just so much information in it, and was flipping through it and saw part numbers, components that looked very similar to what was inside my system, and looked at the cost. I mean, geez, this is $400 here. I think I can get these. I mean, never mind, going wholesale, but I can put together a kit and support Apple people for a quarter of that with what I'm seeing here.
Right.
And did it for myself and said, I can help people. And, ultimately that was the door that opened. I mean, I guess you could say a little bit of greed in the Apple space. I mean, people are still paying this. And back then, I mean, people certainly, it was more of a minority with computers. I got my Apple II GS, by the way, because I sold tickets, raffle tickets to win a cash prize, and that's how I paid for my first Apple.
You just said win a cash prize, and you just got you got a big raffle, and that was enough. That's imaginative. That's imaginative. So when, and you've now really moved. I mean, we really think you of OWC as someone that's building a lot of connectivity, building a lot of storage. Was there a shift in your business model at some point to get to that, to make that change?
It's always, I mean, it's been driven by, in some cases, my personal needs. And then as the company grew, by what our team, was looking at, seeing deficiencies, seeing, products that either lacked or didn't do everything we needed, things that were maybe too niche, out of reach, or just, gaps that were in the system, in the program, so to speak. Early 90s got into storage, needed storage, wanted storage. Actually, we rolled out in 92. We had the first bus power, maybe it was 94. We had the very first bus-powered hard drives. I mean, these powered off the floppy port, but that was the first in the market. We didn't, I mean, it was just direct to our customers, but that was something unique. We moved into processor upgrades. First the clockers, because Apple really over-engineered in a lot of areas, so there was easy ways to clock, and then actually brought out the very first ZIF upgrades to take those G3s to a higher level. And it was great because we could, for $300, we offered a processor upgrade that made at that point, a G3, Apple's first, power PCs after the 601s, after those, the first, the Power Mac 6100, 7100 stage when they went to the G3. Really, that's, right after Jobs came back or right before Jobs came back when things were kind of in disarray. But long story short, you could spend, $500 more, maybe it was $800 more to get the fastest Apple. Or for $300, we took the slowest machine off the shelf and made it faster than Apple's fastest because of cache. I mean, it was, again, it's all about maximizing, what existing hardware could do. And we would take that further when OS X, after Jobs came back, OS X went into beta test. And it was a great beta program. Everybody could run it. And this is just how we think and operate. We had customers that had upgraded at that point. We were moving the G4 processors. We had much faster G3s. People upgraded memory, hard drives, everything in these systems. And they ran OS X great. And then when OS X went from beta to release, Jobs said, I say Jobs, Apple, that was kind of Jobs gate. Okay, great. Thanks for beta testing. Everything's, thank you for helping us get this OS, ready for a release point. But now you got to buy a new computer if you want to use it. So we released X post facto for free, which with software that let you run OS X on previous hardware on non-supported Macs, which we were able to keep going until Apple went to Intel with starting up to OS 10.4. I'm going way back, but that's just kind of the flow. And FireWire, and I'll say the last tangent.
Yeah,
we got into FireWire storage, back in 2001. Not because initially we had, we were still doing SCSI drives and such, but the drives at that time, it's a lot different today. It's honestly a lot harder to communicate today. There's different specifications. I mean, people don't care about specs, don't even look at that stuff anymore. And a lot of things are good enough, but you don't know what you're missing because they're good enough. But back in 2001,
what are we missing? Like when we look at good enough for drives, what are we missing?
You're missing sustained performance in a lot of cases. You're missing reliability. You're missing, they have great instant specs, but what they're really doing, I mean, if you walk away, you're missing out on potential performance, potential reliability, or even things along the lines of, are they built to last? Are they going to take a drop? Those sorts of matters. But in an SSD space, we see all these SSDs out there that promise these amazing, awesome speeds. And you really put them to the test, they do that for a few seconds, and then they can drop to almost nothing.
We warn people a lot of times. I have a lot of the Samsung, because they fit with our cameras really well, the Blackmagic cameras. We have these Samsung, the T5 drives. But the problem is that they'll do sustain for about 400 gigs out of a terabyte, and then they just drop to nothing. Like, it's just like, and we're done. And what causes that? Is that heat? Is that a heat issue for them?
It depends upon the drive. Heat throttling is one factor that brings drives down. And that's something, if you look at an enclosure, there's lots of very inexpensive enclosures out there. Actually, one of our guys, his neighbor bought one of those really inexpensive enclosures and showed how it melted. I mean, the thing literally melted. And heat dissipation is really important, because drives that run at high speed, certainly for a sustained period of time, they generate heat. It's just a byfactor of at this point, byproduct of what's happening to push that data through. The enclosure is important because things will heat throttle, or worse, you have some drives that are really not designed well, solid state drive. And again, all the majors are pretty well on this. So they don't heat throttle. You run the risk, of course, of cooking the drive.
Right.
And provisioning, of course, how over provisioned is the storage? That's a big deal too.
Yeah, the cache, the drop off in performance comes down to, you have at this point, you have 3 cache layers potentially. There's a RAM, there's memory. All of our high-end SSDs have RAM, which not only gives some instant buffering, but it also helps manage the garbage collection and keeping the drive clean and fresh to receive that. It gives faster management. Then you have a PSLC layer, which is very, very high speed, and how large that section is has a huge impact on how much the drive can stand. And then it's the quality of the flash, or the speed of the flash behind it, and that's where you go between QLC and TLC. Or even how the drive is tuned.
Can you explain QLC versus TLC?
Sure. Quad layer versus triple layer. And, if you go back a few years, there was just the MLC, which was really kind of a dual layer. And then we went to TLC. TLC initially was very slow compared to MLC. The technology, they pack more bits into the same space. You have to have more layers. Adding more layers, at least in the initial stages, has a big impact on performance. And then the technology evolves. You have different, I guess you could say, relays within the actual NAND, and ultimately you bring things up. Today, though, if you see something that says QLC, it's going to be slow. And if it's fast initially, you can say, wow, this is QLC, and they claim all these great speeds, it's going to be fast for a little while, and it literally will drop to speeds that are slower than a hard drive. So it's really about, when we try to put specs up that we talk about, what the sustained, performance is throughout what part of the drive, where we're going to drop it. You have to, the paper on the drive, you're going to drop. We don't drop to nothing, though. We don't produce things that drops. I don't know what the T5 drops to. I should maybe, but
it's like 30 megs a second.
Yeah. You got stuff that drops to almost nothing.
It's like very useful and then not useful at all, really fast. So it's and it's
That's
only
rough.
when you're doing maximum, like pulling it out. If you just are writing to it at a reasonable speed, it does better. So I guess, and I guess one of the things that what we're going to do is have you, I think Jason said that there's some new stuff to show here. We're going to have you show a little bit of that, and then we've got a lot of questions starting to stack up. Jason, do you want to cue that up a little bit?
Yeah, I can take it from there. So, the MiniStack STX has been out for a little while. But one of the things that I think was different is that the hub protocol is built in now, right? So it's a little bit hard to see on that, but so, you've got 90 watts coming in and you've got 3 Thunderbolts coming down, right? And
actually 90 watts going out.
I'm sorry, 90 watts going out. And then you've got space in here. I actually really put this through its paces. I've had it for a couple days. And what I found was I can get the fan to kind of turn on. Like if I really if I'm really pushing it, if I, for example, one of my tests was on this M2 Mini, I took the entire Logic sound library and pushed it between the Mini, the M2 SSD, and then a SATA drive that I put into this box. That was the only time I ever heard the fan the whole time.
And what I guess one of the things we don't see for Thunderbolts very often. What are the challenges with packing that into an external device?
Honestly, it's more qualification than anything else. The chipsets today give us that capability. I mean, we can't.
How many buses are those? 4 separate buses, or one bus that's kind of supporting all those Thunderbolts?
If you got a single channel coming in, then you get 3 downstream ports from it with the with that chipset design. And then as the qualification, it's heat dissipation. The one trade-off that we do have in the MiniStack is, and this is with today's chipset technology, there's just no other way around this with Thunderbolt 4. We only get a single lane of PCI to the hard drive and the SSD. But for audio and even for, even up to probably about 4K, up to 4K video and a little bit beyond 4K video, the MiniStack with a single lane and today's NVMe technology, and that's the other big thing, it sustains that performance throughout. You do have enough data performance for an amazing array of applications. Speeds and features, something people go after all the time. Oh my God, this is, 5 million megabytes a second. You really need to look at your application, which all of you are very well aware of. And am I meeting my application spec, and does this serve the purpose that it needs? Which the MiniStack was designed, looking at needs and purposes, hard drive and SSD, and giving people those extra ports. So the Thunderbolt, or their, of course, anything that's USB, and their full power. I mean, a lot of people have multiple. Now there's more and more bus power devices out there, so that's a big plus for bus power. You also have the other benefit with anything that gives you more Thunderbolt ports. The shorter your Thunderbolt chains, the better your performance across those Thunderbolt devices. So being able to, and just the convenience of being able to disconnect a single device and not have to unravel a whole chain to grab something that might be in the middle.
No, absolutely. And and how would you compare the Thunderbolt 4 to the highest performance USB-C? Is there a big difference?
Yes. Just that's
I threw you a softball. So can you tell us a little bit about working with both of those?
Well, Thunderbolt, in Thunderbolt 4, this is kind of, there's a rabbit hole, when we talk about Thunderbolt.
We're good at rabbit holes.
General. Yeah. So I'm going to try not to go too deep into this, but Thunderbolt 4, in terms of in the peripheral side, is really more about giving people more ports. And those ports are 40 gigabit. They support video and, of course, audio. They support, up to 2,800 megabytes of data performance, more or less, right about in that range. There's, of course, USB, and you can daisy chain. So you can add device. It's a PC. I mean, effectively, you have external PCI with anything that's Thunderbolt. USB is USB, and in addition to processor overhead on USB, and it's gotten better. It's really single-ended. Do you have a hub? I mean, it's you put a hub on something that's USB. I mean, it's a hub, not a dock. Your performance is even further diminished.
And what kind of real speeds can we get when we're transferring data, through Thunderbolt 4?
Well, it's called Thunderbolt 40 gigabits, or it's called Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4. But through a Thunderbolt 4 port, you're going to hit on data rates, regularly on realistically 2,500 to 2,800 megs a second. That's great.
Jason, you have other things you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to. I'm going to try not to get too into this, but it is clear to me that again, because a lot of the prior docks were really well constructed, but ended up needing something like this. These MiniStacks, these the wall warts essentially, to be powered. And then I opened this one. And I was looking for the wall wart, and there isn't one. This is it. Like it plugs in just like a Mac Mini. and I don't think there's a fan in here. So this clearly was the result of a ton of engineering. And I would assume maybe GaN, is that how you're doing it? Gallium nitride? How?
And we're gonna keep on pulling you back to, because I know that you have so much in your head, Larry, that we're gonna try to pull some of it out. Can you tell us how NGAN works and why it's important?
Well, the bad news, I really can't tell you a whole lot about how it works.
Okay.
Other than the benefit of it is a much smaller, more compact power supply.
Okay.
That with the right heat dissipation, you can pack a lot of wattage into a much smaller place.
Yeah.
So that's the benefit. It's just it's more efficient for the same space, is I suppose what I put out there without going into great engineering detail, other than we love it because now it means we can do a lot more without having to have a giant wall wart.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And one other thing I have, actually, I have one of these little Raids, which we like a lot. We got a couple of these floating around. Can you tell us what's the difference between NVMe and SATA? Can you describe like why you choose one or the other?
NVMe is just simply, it's going to be faster. It's processor direct. I mean, you lose some of that benefit when you go through USB, but effectively it's a faster. There's less interface between the computer and and where the data is when using NVMe device. You have SATA SSDs, and SATA is limited to today. SATA is limited, and probably forever at this point. There's no new SATA coming along. You're limited to 6 gigabits, so call it 500-600 megs a second. NVMe, the sky is based on the PCIe level. So PCIe gens, everything that's NVMe today, you're able to push. I mean, you have bandwidth available that's in excess of 3,000 megs, 4,000 megs a second.
Right. Absolutely. And we've got a couple questions lining up, so we're going to go to the panelists.
I got a better answer to that. SATA, you're limited to the bus. NVMe, you're limited really to your interface and what the drive can do.
Right. That's very good. And we'll go to the panelists for a little bit, and then I know there's some more things to show, but we're going to jump into it. We got a bunch of questions stacking up, and you can tell that for our viewers that Larry knows a lot about this. so we're going to take advantage of that. So go ahead, Mitchell, do you have a question?
Larry, first of all, thanks for being here. I'm a big fan. You got my attention way back when you were showing how you could take something that you had, a Mac computer, and make it live longer. And I had a 2010 cheese grater that went to your place to have a CPU put in it, which I use to this day, by the way. What are your plans to do to increase the life of an M2 or an M1 or Apple Silicon?
Sure. On the Apple Silicon, I mean, unfortunately, everything is external. There is pretty much nothing you can do inside the machine, but in terms of what we can continue to have externally, I mean, today it's kind of limited, but as new needs come along, and it's really exciting that Apple looks like they're going to be opening up external GPUs again and bringing that support to Apple Silicon. I think that's really, really important, especially for specialty apps and for audio. I mean, there's all sorts of applications there, but ultimately, because it's PCIe, we'll be able to continue to add things externally.
And George?
Morning, Larry. How are you?
Morning, George. Hey, good to see you.
Good. So let folks know. So I want to say real quickly that but maybe 3 or 4 NABs back, I've known Larry and his team for a while. It was asked, what can we do to help filmmakers with the process of post-production and shooting? So Larry OWC took a route to really embrace filmmakers. Larry, how has that been over the past few years and getting to where you are? It's a different company now as far as integrating more products directly to our industry and filmmakers. How's that process been?
It's been good. I mean, if you go back to, again, we got into FireWire. I didn't actually finish that part of the story because we had people in film and audio. They were having problems with the FireWire drives, and we were selling major brand drives, but they were flavor of the week. They changed chipsets. They changed drives. The performance wasn't consistent. And it's why we rolled out Oxford-based high-performance FireWire drives, and we didn't do it going after film. We did it honestly pretty. I won't say ignorance, but kind of oblivious to what the application was, other than they need performance. Our customers need performance. Our customers need, we know the Oxford chipset is what delivers it along with the right drive. So way back when, we've embraced our customers' needs. And as we've embraced media and entertainment, we've worked to be everything from, that capture to output, which is what we provide today. And it's what we do. I mean, we want everybody to have accessibility to our solutions. I mean, we're not trying to price things, make something that, 100 people can afford and, and sell for some outrageous costs. Throughout our history, it's been about what great technology can we bring forth that meets the needs of our customers, in this case, media and entertainment, that anybody can use, whether I'm a home photographer or a hobbyist. I mean, I'm doing drone videos, I'm doing my family's photos, whatever it might be, up to major motion picture, which our line truly embraces today. And the feedback you all on the front lines, and especially in the high performance areas, there's workflows that, that you absolutely need the right solutions for. And the feedback that comes from all of you, I mean, that inspires and that drives, how we design, engineer, and where we put our focus. And that benefits everybody.
And we've got a couple questions coming in from our viewers, or our producers here. So let's go ahead and jump to the questions.
And here's one from Viera, Florida, from Andy Kokendorfer asking, which OWC hub do you recommend for an M2 Pro Macbook used for live streaming?
The beautiful, I mean, I'm assuming you need USB inputs, or maybe you need USB-C inputs. You need USB-C inputs, or Thunderbolt 4 dock, or even our Thunderbolt 4 hub, which is technically a dock. With the thing about our docks, all the way back to our first Thunderbolt 2 dock, all the ports we have provide full bandwidth. They don't have, they're not overloaded. They don't have constraints. There's the bandwidth there to do what you need it to do with reliability. So really, it comes down to how many devices do you need to connect and what kind of ports do you need. And any of the Thunderbolt solutions we provide are going to meet those needs. In fact, the first dock that we put out, we didn't build it for live streaming. We didn't go after that market, but because of, who typically there's a lot of reviewers that are doing these live streams, we learned early, and this is why I even talk about it today. The feedback was, this is the first dock that we can actually plug our 4 cameras into, and they all work at the same time. I was like, and we knew why. It's because of what we did with our USB hubbing inside the solution. And for us, it was common sense. If you're going to put ports on, they've got to have performance. And that's also why on a Thunderbolt 4 dock, that we offer, you don't see a million ports, especially with Thunderbolt 4. Again, you've only got that one PCIe lane available. If you need more ports than our Thunderbolt 4 dock offers, you go to our Thunderbolt 3 14-port dock, because it has additional bandwidth that we're able to provide into the dock to support those additional ports, so you don't have limitations if you do fully load up the dock. We want all of our docks to be able to operate fully loaded with all those ports occupied. And so it really comes down to, again, the ports and what you need. And I want to throw something out there just really quick, that rabbit hole about Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4. Thunderbolt 3 is equivalent, especially on a Mac, to Thunderbolt 4 in terms of performance on the ports. Thunderbolt 4 on a peripheral is really more about being able to add more Thunderbolt ports. And then there's less bandwidth available to have peripheral capabilities within the Thunderbolt 4 product. Thunderbolt 3, you only have the one downstream port for Thunderbolt, but you have the full lane capability, the full capability of Thunderbolt 3 or 4, the full 40 gigabit capability of Thunderbolt throughout the entire device, which is why you don't see Thunderbolt 4 RAID solutions and high-end Thunderbolt 4 storage. People asked us, when are your Thunderbolt 4? Actually, one person specifically, and he was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, and at first I was like, thanks, Intel. But we had customers come to us and say, that Flex 8's amazing when we introduced our Flex 8 product. I just wish it was Thunderbolt 4. It's like, you don't wish it was Thunderbolt 4, because what makes the Flex 8 awesome is, all the capability within it. If it was a Thunderbolt 4 solution, it'd literally be 1/4 the speed, 1/4 for all those drives. So Thunderbolt 3 and Thunderbolt 4 in the peripheral space, one is not better than the other. One is for a certain kind of solution, and one is for the other solution. Thunderbolt 8120, or people are referring to as Thunderbolt 5, is going to change that immensely. I'm really excited about
how does it change it?
Thunderbolt 5. In the Thunderbolt 5, when we move into Thunderbolt 8120, the availability of being in a single solution, ports won't be a compromise. Do we have more Thunderbolt ports? How do we route our PCI lanes? What we're going to be able to do within a device, the bandwidth is going to be up to 120 gigabits in one direction. And when you take off, it'll support much higher. You're going to have more capability for displays, and you're going to have bandwidth for data that approaches 6,000 to 6,500 megabytes a second without compromise. That's
how far away. How far away is Thunderbolt 5? Do you think?
Thunderbolt 5, we'll see the first Thunderbolt 5 systems probably in the Windows and the Intel band in early 2024. We'll see. I can't really talk much about Apple in general, but 2024 is when Thunderbolt 5 will start to roll. And Thunderbolt 5, again, there's a lot of questions we still have in terms of backwards compatibility, but you're certainly going to be able to run Thunderbolt 5 on, or Thunderbolt 8120 devices on probably every Mac from 2016 and later, just like Thunderbolt 4. The question is going to be will be what kind of OS support is necessary for it. And there's still some some haze. We're still waiting for good information there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the next question.
Henry Ramos from Yonkers, New York, asking, with companies moving towards unserviceable or un-upgradeable hardware, will this affect product lines like OWC? Do you support efforts or possible legislation against that trend?
Well, first I answer the last part of that. Yeah, we're part of the right to repair consortium. So, we're a supporter and an involved, organization or company with that group. And in terms of our own solutions, we've always pushed to support. In fact, we have battery. We still do batteries for everything to make sure you can upgrade your battery without having to be tied to a service life on a product. But in general, all of our solutions are aimed at extending the life of existing computers. And we have not, for our own products, and now there's a push. You look everywhere. This has already been happening. Everybody does these. I shouldn't say everybody, but there's a lot of stuff out there that's, for lack of a better term, it's designed to fail. It comes, especially on desktop powered drives, the stuff you see in Best Buy or worse on the shelf at Walmart. A lot of stuff comes with a little tiny wall wart power adapter, and that stuff's not designed to last. I can't say they're intentionally setting up for failure, but by cutting costs and a power supply, an external power supply, and what they do with the power supply on the bridge, noisy power, just like bad audio or a bad amplifier can cook a speaker. Bad power supplies, over time do damage to what they're powering, and that's we take real issue with that. And we've always built, even before it was a thing, we've always built things to last. We don't want to drive sales or we're a data storage company, more than most, and focusing on data. We want to make sure everything we put out there has the best reliability.
Does that mean if we really like our product, we should go out and get a better power supply? Like just get a better power supply that produces the same voltage and enough amps to solve that? Is that
in a lot of cases that would help? Having an overpowered, having a bigger power adapter, for with the same voltage output, actually helps. If you take some of those, the problem with a lot of power supplies are included with these different drives. If you look at their capability, their output, they have to use peak power to spin the drive up, especially talking about spinning devices. They need, they're not operating within their normal range. They got to go into that peak to handle spin ups and high level activity, which is really bad. It puts stress on the power supply is a point of failure, but putting stress on the power supply is probably not going to fail. But you look at an oscilloscope and what's happening with that power that's being put into the device when it's in peak, it's pretty ugly, right. And that's really bad for the device.
No, absolutely. Next question.
George E. Kennedy Jr. from Washington, D.C. here on our panel also. Larry, we discussed this before with all the tech OWC has in its arsenal. Will we see in network-attached storage any updates?
We have Jellyfish, which is really high-end. That's for video production. We also have Jupiter, which is still, it's not as expensive. It's still more professional, small office, still audio production. We are working on bringing that technology, and we have a couple of different paths that ultimately I think we're going to see fulfilled. So we have a NAS product for the mass. We just want to do it right and do it in a way that it's not necessarily just a me too. There are decent NAS products out there. There's different ways to share storage. A lot of our customers, and it's not a great way. Even use, Apple networks and may use the MacMini to share their storage, with one of our external devices. But we will have a solution. Actually, a couple solutions we're looking at. One to allow for other devices we already have to be put into a NAS or be operated now with NAS interface, and then a NAS product that comes at a more, I hate to say entry level, but a more consumer level that still maintains the quality and the ease of use and the things that we want. There's just a lot of it's tough. There's a lot of, as you get into the NAS products that you really want to have, they get really expensive, and you look at the NAS products that are reasonable, and they have a lot of caveats. And we want to have that really good NAS solution, without the user caveats that create support issues and reliability and access and such.
Next question.
Andy Kokendorfer from Vieira, Florida asks, will there be an OWC hub that supports more than 2 monitors on a standard M1, M2 laptop?
Right now, of course, we have the dual port. Technically, you can buy 2 the dual port adapters and use the second and get a third display. The short answer is yes in the future. And without going into a lot of detail, we're going to, in our next lineup of docks, which it will be more honestly built around the new Thunderbolt 8120 interface, but so with backwards compatibility, we will be adding some flexibility there that's going to enable it. We actually have a Thunderbolt 5, and what's coming is going to be really exciting in that space. But today, we're just offering the dual. Why Apple limited the M1, M2 Thunderbolt, which is why they can't call it Thunderbolt 4, by the way. One of Thunderbolt 4's requirements is that you can support 2 displays off the Thunderbolt bus, which you have to have a Pro or a Max to do that without trickery. If I say trickery, I guess there's another way to add a third display or a second display without display link. But nonetheless, for a normal plug and play solution today, you can add a second display, or a Mac Mini, you can go 3 because you can use the HDMI out, then you can plug our dual HDMI adapter in to have a 1 via Thunderbolt and 1 via display link to have that third display. I know I'm taking a long time to answer this question, but there's limitations on what Apple did, and actually just what the platform has, and then you have bandwidth overhead. But in the future, we're looking to make it, if somebody does need a third display, make that, I'd say, more accessible without having to have a dedicated dock that has reports. Apple, another technology that's out there, we see it on the Windows side, and I think it confuses a lot of people when you look at these docks that say they're for Mac. There are solutions out there that show 3 and 4 displays being connected to a single computer. MST technology is out there to multiply display capability. Apple likes to maintain really high performance and without compromise. MST has a lot of compromises, or certainly risk for certain people that are in production spaces that they expect performance and frame rates and resolution. So Apple does not support MST. So those docks that, while there are docks, and there are ways for us it's very easy to do on Windows. It's more complicated to do it right on a Mac. Now, if you have an M1 or M2 that's a Pro, Max, or Ultra, you can get the dual HDMI adapter, plus use your Thunderbolt to have those 3 external displays. Actually, more than 3 external displays.
I get 4. I routinely have 4 connected to my Mac Studio. Let's go to the next question.
I can go to 5 then. Sorry, Mike.
Chris Fenwick from Emeryville, California asks, although I own a lot of your products, I'm still confused by the difference between a dock and a hub. Can you explain?
In the in Thunderbolt, it doesn't matter, honestly. We call the hub a hub because, its primary purpose was to be a hub point for additional Thunderbolt channels. And that was, I think we created a little bit of confusion there, although others follow. If it's Thunderbolt, it's different than the USB world. But if we look at the USB space, it's really a clear delineator between what's a hub and a dock and USB. If it's a hub, it's just a dumb device that takes a USB, whatever it might be, 5 gigabit, 10 gigabit, maybe it's USB 4 in, and gives you more ports, and it has a chipset within that's divvying up the bandwidth, actually typically giving whatever bandwidth to every port that's in the dock, or in the hub, I should say, and filtering it into one port. And the computer in a hub doesn't even know what's connected to it. There's no power management. There's no power delivery from a hub. Typically, it may be bus power, it may have external power, but it's just a dumb device that's allowing multiple devices to come into the computer. And the big difference between a hub and a dock in the USB world, which is why we call a travel dock and not a travel hub, is the power management. And it's not just power management in terms of being able to provide bus power. With a dock, like our travel dock, you can plug your USB-C adapter that will power your laptop directly. You can plug through the dock, and it will pass that power the dock, and pass that power to power the computer. But the most important thing in a dock on the USB side, when it is a dock, and I'm emphasizing dock when it's a dock, the computer actually is communicating with the dock and doing power management. It knows, especially in bus powered mode, it knows what devices are connecting and what has priority. It won't drop a hard drive that's doing data transfer or is connected in a state that needs to be maintained during sleep, as opposed to a keyboard or a mouse. When you plug a hub into a computer, it has no, it knows that there are devices out there, but there's no knowledge, there's no identification, there's no power management, there's no communication with those devices for it to know that needs to be, that needs to maintain connection or power. It's a priority device. A dock has that, I guess, that intelligent level where there's communication between the computer and the, especially in the case of bus powered docks, it knows what's going on, is going to maintain priority and not do something that's going to risk your workflow, your data, et cetera.
Larry, is it safe to say that if you're concerned that you can't go wrong buying a dock and just avoid hubs, considering this? Yes? Mm-hmm. And then just out of curiosity, on the panel here, maybe on the gallery view, how many people are using your products? I'm curious. I think you found your tribe here, Larry.
So anyway, let's go to the next question.
Next question coming to you from George E. Kennedy Jr. in Washington, D.C. Larry, OWC entered the SD-CFE Express market a few months back. What makes the OWC cards different from the rest?
I'll tell you what, we've been in NVMe and NAND, I mean, in the space that effectively supports with these cards, the technology of these cards for a really long time. And it's now actually been 2 years, over 2 years since we began to enter into this space. And I'll be honest with you, when we first, looked at the space, we really came in with an over simplistic view of, it's just another, SSD. And as we got involved with it, we saw just how complex, especially today, and with the performance that's happening with the different cameras, the different codecs that all these different cameras require. That it's a very, to say the least, it's a very complex space. It requires a lot of qualification, and we have spent endless hours making sure that when we put a compatibility chart out there, it absolutely works. And it's not just something that we know because of the camera maker specs. We don't have a video out yet just on what we did with our SD and our CF Express, but it's mixed into some of the videos that we've been publishing lately. We have these cameras, we bring everything in house and we test. And it's actually from a core build difference, it's absolutely a premium product built for reliability and maximum performance that doesn't compromise reliability or lifespan. The other aspect is we actually are testing everything, and we've found things that are being advertised from big brands. Honestly, brands that have been established for a while that it's surprising that must not be tested with these cameras, because the camera makers, and it's neat, we're actually now involved. We're on the CF Express board. We're involved with the standards that are being incorporated now. We have really good technical expertise and understanding, and we're not just building a product, looking at camera specs and saying we meet these specs. We're engaged with the camera makers, identifying bugs, identifying issues in their devices, and working with them on the standards, working with the board on the standards, so that the product, number one, so that hopefully everybody's solution works when they buy it. But most importantly, we have an inside track on a lot of these things from the experience we have in NAND, from our care for, honestly, that quality and reliability, and that testing that, if you go back a decade, I will say it was, and this is the same with a lot of things, it was really easy to bring out a product, meet certain specifications, or use this chipset, and everything just magically worked. Today, it's a very different world. And what definitely makes our product different, if you see something listed in a compatibility chart from us, it's not because we went out and measured the specs or saw the specs and make sure we meet something, because we're testing in that camera. And a lot of times we test in these cameras. Essentially, we have a product right now that is not introduced yet, because there's the specification that should be working according to what some of the competition. And we've tested, it actually, it's not that cut and dry. And, we're going to make sure our product, when we say it's compatible with that solution, it actually works. And that's just the card. That's just from the card technology, making sure, on face value, these things work. The other piece that's coming very, very soon, and we've talked about it a little, and this is, I may get slapped today when I bring it up, but we have a software layer that we're going to be putting into the market, another support piece that will be free for all customers that have our MIDI cards and our readers, that will provide a level of software engagement for sanitation of the drive, for health monitoring, and even for a few firmware updates. And this is about that longevity thing. So that something changes, a new camera comes out, or even an existing camera updates the firmware then to bring a new feature on that may need something different in the media to support it.
Yep.
Our media will be firmware. Actually, the media we're shipping today is firmware upgradable. And that's something that nobody that I'm aware of has done. And this software will work with all, and this is another difference. We've just entered the media space, but we've made sure that the software we're bringing out, which is going to be called Energize, which again, we'll do the sanitation, it's going to be the support firmware updates, health checking. It will work with it will require an OWC media reader, because there's specific things that we have to enable within the reader to support these functions. But we've made this software so that it works with our previous docks. So any of our devices that have SD readers, might be one exception. The other stuff will be upgradable, firmware upgradable to support Energize. And everything that we've been shipping and are shipping today supports this. So you have our cards and you have our readers, which, by the way, are also the fastest readers on the market, which we discovered through this process of testing. We said, what are the reviewers using? We went out and bought that stuff, said, the readers we put in our docks are actually faster than the readers people are benching cards with. But to the point, we're not just providing a media solution that we claim is reliable. We're providing something that we've tested for reliability, have tested for compatibility, and we're bringing out that other value add, so that it's not just something you take our word for.
Right.
You know what's going on with the card. You have the tools to keep it at peak performance, which that Sanitize does. Keep the card clean and keep the card fast, and keep it.
And so the Sanitize is kind of like initializing it again, like cleaning out the registers so that they're ready to take it on. So there's not a lot of cruft that's building up from a constant write and erase system, right?
Correct.
Even though you erase everything, you're not really clearing it.
Correct. On an SSD, erase is lickety-split fast, depending on how it does it, because it's just it just
says ignore the stuff that's there.
Exactly.
It just take the header off like that. Just pretend that doesn't exist. It's still there, but it doesn't. But it's not. You're writing over it at that point. It just says it's okay to write over it. And for those who are listening, the CF Express is the newer screaming fast storage for cameras and so on and so forth. Is it like 1,700 megabytes a second? Yeah, it's incredibly fast. I every time I look at these cards, and we'll jump into the next question here, but I had to build. We had a 444 uncompressed camera. I still have it. It's behind me, I think. That was doing 1080p, and this was in 2007 or 6 or something like that. And we built a RAID from scratch just so it could get up to 250 megabytes a second. that was like and it cost like $2,000 to be able to capture from the camera. And I just look at these little cards and I'm just like, holy smokes. Anyway, next question.
From Steve Uroff in Madison, Wisconsin, asking, does OWC have product designers on staff, or do you design your products in partnership with outside firms?
We have a full engineering team in the U.S. as well as in Taiwan. And we used to do it all in the U.S. We tried to do it all in the U.S. and found that all the chipset makers, all the people we need to interface with are in Asia. So having that engineering team that can interface in real time, stuff that literally took months to solve when we tried to do it all in the U.S. when we hit some sort of bump. Being able to walk down the street, literally blocks from where our operation is, bring a product and have a conversation with an engineer, whether it's DisplayLink, Asmedia, et cetera, Marvell, meant that problems got solved in hours instead of, again, it could go on for months going back and forth overnight. Right. So we do, the majority of our engineering is done in-house. We do partner with firms, but in terms of, we really wanted to take control of that. If I go back 15 years, it was all, partnership. We did the qualification, we really added to it's more than just putting chipsets in boxes. Even as working with an ODM partner, anybody can throw a bunch of chipsets together. The qualification and the fine tuning, and especially the software pieces, which is where that's all US based. That's where the I guess you could say the sauce is. But in 2017, 2018, to really step up and really elevate, as we found what we were doing in the US wasn't wasn't enough. It wasn't fast enough. We actually bought a company that we used to partner with that was Inextron and Akidio. We were driving innovation at one point. When they brought Akidio, we thought we were driving innovation for them, and ultimately, brought that company into the OWC family to really, again, step up and mainly have that presence in Asia, where we could have those relationships and the live interface with all the chips, even the Intel team. That's a lot of that happens today in Taiwan. It's moving around, which is great. But short answer to that question, I have a hard time with short answers. Is yes, the majority.
That's good.
The vast majority of the engineering is done in house.
Yeah. Next question.
Ronnie Hofsey from Tromsø, Norway asks, on a MacBook M1 or 2, MacMini M1 or 2, iMac, and similar, what Thunderbolt dock with minimum 1 gigabytes per second Ethernet port would work great with Dante?
Now, again, I'm stepping outside my absolute areas of expertise, but Dante is audio. Is that correct?
Yeah, Dante, network audio.
Yeah, today, and these, the AVB, because of Apple not supporting the chipset that we use in all of our docks that have Ethernet, does support AVB, but Apple does not implement it, at the driver level on the Mac. And because it's a native port, it's very different. It's complicated to override Apple's driver and effectively take its place. So unfortunately, there is not a 1 gigabit per second Ethernet solution today that I'm not aware of anywhere, period, that supports Dante. You'd have to go up to our Pro dock or to our 10 gigabit adapter to get AVB. So that's I won't say it's the unfortunate answer, but you need to go to a 10 gigabit adapter for that AVB. Is it possible to AVB in a 1 gigabit? Yes, but it's unfortunately complicated in terms of it wouldn't be driverless, and you'd still have a relatively high cost because of the niche audience. So 10 gigabits the way to go, and the Pro dock, which has that 10 gigabit built into it, is really a great way to go. And I know Jason mentioned earlier on the Go dock doesn't have a fan. Our current generation Pro dock also doesn't have a fan, as we did an immense amount of engineering so that the heat is dissipated even under full load, nonstop, so that no fans required, and there is no throttling of the port. At 1 gigabit, you never have throttling. 10 gigabits, the first Pro dock had a fan because that, again, bandwidth data, high performance requires power.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
being able to overcome that in the Pro dock.
Yeah, next question.
Rajan Shandil from Los Angeles, California asks, impressive how many computer products you've saved from the landfill. Do you have a personal philosophy about upcycling and reuse?
Sure. My dad was in the paper industry, and it was, again, waste not, want not was always there, recycling and working with recycled paper products, understanding just the cycle in that industry. Really there was a lot of continued use, kind of shaped, how I got into, or how I looked at, the computer side. And the computer side was the same thing. You look at all these capabilities, what can we do internal? Well, it used to be what can we do internal and what can we hack internally to take it further. Today, it's of course what we can plug in external. But certainly, the strong belief of everything is don't lock people into things that require a specialty solution. Keep everything open. We want to earn people's trust, not force them into an ecosystem. Not once we got you, we got you. So all those things roll in terms of give people the flexibility, in general to buy what they bring into their equation, what they need to get their job done, and hopefully we're a part of that workflow and keeping that computer going for as long as possible.
Yeah.
Why replace something that's already working? And certainly, I look at software. You have a workflow that's awesome and just need a bit more performance rather than having to reinvent the wheel with a new computer. Hey, if you can add some more storage, add memory, speed up the processor so you can keep that going. That's priceless. And people say, well, geez, I could buy a new computer for twice the price of that upgrade. So, well, then you got the software, you got everything else that and the time. And time is precious. And if something's working, that's why it's surprising. People, they still have these, Mac Pro. People are still getting Mac Pro cheese graters, 2010 and 2012s. Mac Pro 2013s are still in high demand because of workflows that are working perfectly that meet the need. Yes, you could elevate with there's all these great new capabilities, but there's that. It's like anything else. Do I need it today? And when I do need it, the longer if this is serving me today, the longer that serves me. By the time it is time to upgrade and move forward, the technology I need, will cost less, be more evolved, and be easier to transition to. And then we have our used Macs now. We did that because it's like, geez, all these, we have the capability to upgrade, enhance, and service these systems. So that was, an interesting tangent that we got into, but that's another fast area. We just don't like to see things get wasted. We don't want to have a robot taking apart and shredding things. I mean, the
but it's
biggest
so pretty.
waste.
It's so pretty to watch the robot to take it apart. It's like it's got the little thing going on. Anyway, one more question. Then we're going to do one more demo. So let's one more question, and then we'll go to the demo.
Yeah, time flies.
Roscoe Jones, Madison, Indiana, asking, how have your instructional videos affected sales? Are they always a part of the new product discussion?
We need to be more consistent there, but they're really important. I mean, education has been a mission of OWC since the beginning, and not just for our products. I mean, just in general. I mean, the more people know, the more they can get out of their solutions and get and know that there are things they can do with their computers, with their technology. So education period is a core piece of what we do, and try to do that across the board, independent with the products and also independent of the products.
Yeah, one of the things that I often talk about with this is that sometimes just knowing how to take full advantage of the product increases its value without any more engineering. Like if my microwave died tomorrow, I would just buy another microwave. I don't have any, because all I know how to do is, it's got lots of cool things in my microwave, but all I know how to do is power and time, and mostly just time. Like that's what we know how to do is time. And it's because every time it says, if I put something in there, it says, go find the manual. A paper manual that was shipped with it 10 years ago is somewhere in the house that I should go look at. And one of the things that I've been noticing a lot of is coming out is a lot of products that I get now have a QR code on the back. And I just I'm like, I don't understand how to use this. And I point my phone at the QR code and a little video pops up, shows you exactly how to put this together. And I was like, okay, that's cool. It's gotten that quick to make that happen. Now, Jason, I think, has one more thing to show us before we get to the end of the hour. Jason, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a way too small set of sticks, and I'm trying not to drop this 6K Pro with a really heavy lens on it. So Larry and I were talking just around the idea of, in fact, coming back to firmware. And I just kind of mentioned in passing that I had bought one of these, Larry, what's the product called? I just call them, thank you. I call them jump drives because that's what they look like and they behave like. And this one, let me see if I can get a little bit closer in here. Yeah, there we go. So this one, kind of looks like your standard combination jump drive. So you've got USB-C, right, on the top, and the nice little piece of engineering that allows you to also have what, is that same set of things that looks like USB 3, but is actually USB 3.1, correct me if I'm wrong, generation 2, or is this USB generation 2?
Should be 3.2, but it's 10 gigabits USB.
Right. So to that end, I mentioned in passing that it is far and away the fastest jump drive I've ever seen in any form factor, let alone with this, I could plug it into a 486 style pace. And so we started looking at the data stream and throughput of the 6K Blackmagic 6K camera. And I said, is there any reason that this shouldn't be able to record in 6K RAW? And we couldn't come up with one. So you said, send them back. I think there's a firmware update that you might be missing. And to that end, all I'm going to do here, just because there's a cage on it, is just plug a 10-foot extension in here and plug this in, and it will format to exFAT. I guess I didn't, in fairness, try it in Mac OS format, and it not only records, but records from front to back all the way through. And I've done this repeatedly. Never, ever drops a frame.
What's the max throughput on that jump drive?
It hits about 900 megs a second at peak. The sustained data rate, I believe it needs to be over 400 megs a second, which is with the firmware update. We released this originally, in version, it's a quiet update. But reliability is first and foremost. We were still testing heat, which is fine with the higher performance, but that took longer to certify. So firmware update. and provided the write speed capability to support that camera. And we're actually certifying our Envoy Pro electrons as well as this particular product, for that kind of camera use. We don't talk. I mean, companies come out there. I see all sorts of crazy claims out there where, they'll look at a speed and say, "Hey, yeah, this works with everything." We don't come out and say things work with something until we've tested and proven it, and really beat it up. And Jason actually beat us to the punch on this one, which was fantastic.
What would be the theoretical maximum for one of these for the throughput on a small drive like that? I have a couple of the 8K or the 12Ks from Blackmagic, and we're always trying to find the fastest way to get data off of it, so that we can run 8K records and high frame rate and so on and so forth. What do you think is what should we consider this is as good as it's going to get?
Well, right now the limit on the Blackmagic, it's a 10 gigabit USB-C connection. Mm-hmm. So you're limited actually on the write speed there at roughly about 1,100 megs a second, which are FX drives, which are a little bit bigger, support sustained through. And then on the read side, which you can get it offloaded and ingested, you hit that full 2,000 megs a second when you plug it in via Thunderbolt. The FX supports. Good thing about the FX, it was the first solution in the market that supported both. In addition to supporting 5 gigabit USB, it also supported 10 gigabit USB for such enabled systems, and then all the way up to Thunderbolt. So that would be your fastest solution.
Yep, very good. Larry, thank you so much for joining us for an hour. It's really
my pleasure. I can't believe the hour's already blown by.
I think we may try to get you to come back and geek out with us every once in a while. Are you open to that?
I love it. I often I'd love just to be around just to help answer questions.
Awesome. Very, very good. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks to Jason for putting together this and putting together the demos. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much to the producers who asked all the great questions and kept everything moving from all over the world. I think we got a couple continents in there with those questions. So really, really great work. Thanks to the panel. Can't do this without you, of course. And thanks to the amazing team on the back end. I think we always want to remind people that there's 20 or 30 people that was required to make this show get off the ground every single day, 7 days a week. And so it's just an incredible team that puts that together and spread out all over the world. We traveled, the questions traveled 84,456 miles today, 135,000 kilometers, and that is 764 million bananas for scale. So keep that in mind. And now we're going to go ahead and jump into After Hours.
Hope to see NAB, everybody.
Yes, NAB. Oh, we're going to be there. we're definitely going to be there. So we're excited about that. Are you going to have a big booth, Larry? How big is your? Hey, Larry,
you could have a booth at NAB. This is the part where we whisper.
Yeah, we whisper. We just sit there, talk underneath the credits. So there's credits there, but we just keep talking. It's hard when you're new. All right, we're going to jump. Good show, everybody.